if he so wishes. If the people like the job he's done as he's been in there, they can keep him. That's the people's decision, and therein lies the 24/7 voting. Now, the military is willing to acquiesce certain portions of control to that appointed commander-in-chief. There is a short list that the Joint Chiefs would like to see as best capable individuals to handle that office. That office is going to be tasked with helping straighten out the mess, realigning a whole bunch of departments, doing away with a lot of them, and all that sort of thing. So there is going to be an extraordinary freedom movement just from the White House alone. And you have to remember, this person has limited powers. If need be, and any kind of attempt to adversely exercise those powers is made, that person is immediately removed, taken into custody, and he goes visits a FEMA camp somewhere. They are not going to put up with any fun and games. And I personally am in accord with this for two reasons. First of all, it puts a person who is a civilian in the position. Number two, people who know what's going on, and there are several that I do know who do know what's going on, will not cause problems in terms of what the stipulation of returning to freedom entails. They will facilitate that. And that's basically what that office will be busy with, probably, I'm going to estimate at least 3 months, probably longer than that. So does that answer the question, or you need more?
If I understand what you just said, Drake, the first publicly visible evidence of this action will then be the removal of the present sitting Chief Executive Officer, Barack Obama.
Along with a bunch of others.
Okay. All right. It goes to my next area of inquiry, which has to do with, right now, the work that you're doing. And, I have to say you've been very vigorous in this, and I think, for the most part, you've been very clear and upfront in answering questions. We are dealing with perceptions being formed on what I call the 1% level. In other words, right now the freedom movement as we know it exists in a microcosm on the Internet and different freedom groups, obviously, that are sort of hidden from public view. The average person watching CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC has no clue as to what we're talking about. If they were to walk into this conversation right now, they would swear that we were on hallucinogenic drugs. So my question is, how do the groups that are working together out there shape these perceptions in a way to make them palpable to Joe Sixpack?
Okay, very simply. I'll give you a real good example. On several occasions, some of the shows where I was interviewed exceeded the watching, let's see here, what would you call it, the audience number of Fox News, CNN, and others. So if we are exceeding their numbers, that means people are not watching as, the persona of Joe Sixpack sitting on the couch watching whatever. What's happened is people are deciding, well, maybe there's something to this. I ought to listen to this, see what it says. And that's basically what's happening. There are a multitude right now, and I mean a humongous number of people who are newbies. And by that I mean somebody who has just found out that there might be another way to do things that would be a lot better. That's where we come in terms of offering this to the public. I was asked to do several of the shows, given specific instructions as to what to address if I could, and to either run by the cuff, make notes, however I wanted to do it. The idea of that is to, first of all, as an example, I addressed the troops. That went like wildfire all over the planet. The morning after, the morning after that show had been completed and the recording put on the website, it had turned up in Japan, Subic Bay. It was going through all of the sailors. It was going through all the Marines. It was going everywhere. This is great. That means everybody is aware to look in their field manual to see that they're not supposed to take on civilians here in our country. So then I was tasked with addressing the general public to include militias and underground groups. That particular show was one of the better ones and garnered extraordinary numbers. It almost doubled what Fox News and CNN normally do. Now, if people want to look at it, they can find us online. There's been reports lately that Fox News, CNN, and other types of news channels have lost somewhere between 30 and 50 or 60% of their viewership. People are tired of not having any news. Okay, they're also hungry to write their lives. In other words, they understand that there's some kind of funky monkey business going on, and they don't like it. The only thing they see are tax increases, gas prices that go out of sight for no good reason, among other things. And they're tired of it. How can we fix this? Well, part of what this will do is to address all of those issues. Now, I'll give you an example real quick of international fun and games. Everybody hears about Iran and Israel. Ooh, they want to kill each other and wipe each other off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Okay, well, there's a little bit of funny caveat to that. And Veterans Today is a website that I read because I know one of the editors. And it's interesting that if somebody takes a look, and it's online, you can find it, but you got to look a little bit. Israel and Iran use a trading platform. Most people don't know what one of those is, but this is where you trade out of these.
Iran set up a bourse many years ago for trading. Yes. Okay.
Guess who are partners? Not just trading, but partners in the ownership of that platform. Iran and Israel. Well, let's see here. As soon as Iran started making funny noises about, we're going to blow you up, the oil price started going up. Well, if they're trading oil on that platform, it sounds to me like they're in it for the bucks. It sounds to me like that World War III stuff is just bogus BS so that they can make $2 extra a gallon or whatever they're getting. So you have to bear these things in mind. The basis of all this is something that looks like one thing when it's totally something else. You have to remember that the bad guys have been limited in their funding to a point where they have primarily threats. Look at that, NDAA. Oh, my goodness, an executive order that just sticks it to us. Well, I'm going to tell you that this, to me, this is a horse and pony show and not much more because they have lost their capability to be consumer-oriented. Now, this is something everybody's familiar with. Everybody's a consumer. Well, the problem is that the banking system is also consumer-oriented. If they cannot go to a small country, rape and pillage it, and leave everybody sitting in the dust, and take all that new funding and run it through their system, they got problems. And if you guys want to see a real problem, I'll give you an example. One very major bank here in the United States is very close to full absolute bankruptcy. It's called Bank of America. Now, you want to see that? It's online. There's 15 different listings for the problems. They're looking at a combination of closing 600 branches to start with, and they're up to the point of actually offering to split it up to the highest bidder. Now, if that doesn't tell you something, if the liens on the federal banking system doesn't get the message across, you've got in excess of 600 resignations and arrests and whatnot in Europe. And those started when our package of papers left our shores the very same day.
Let me ask you this. How did they know those papers had reached The Hague at that time?
It wasn't at The Hague. It left our shores. They tried to intercept it. They was watching, but they're not as good as they think they are. I run across this all the time. Forethought and planning does not have anything to do with hurry up and wait. but they're just the same. The word back in World War II was snafu. You fill in the letters.
I know snafu very well. My father was a Korean War veteran, yes.
Okay, so when you have a snafu situation, that means that the idiots that are shooting artillery have just, and you're sitting in Vietnam or somewhere, have just bombarded the crap out of you. Everybody's hiding in the bottom of their foxhole praying, and you're on the radio, and you're going, what the F was that, man? What's the matter with you people? Well, that is a snafu situation. Right now, the banking system has an extraordinary problem. They have stolen, leveraged, or borrowed monies that they were not lawfully or legally entitled to. And what is happening is that they are being required, not asked, required to pay it back. So the central bank system doesn't have 30, 40 trillion laying around that is real money. So they got some serious problems. And you're seeing this first in Europe. The reason you are is because Rothschild is a large conglomerate of financial institutions, and he had to be hit first. Okay, Rockefeller and the Bushes here are the next prime target. So you're going to start seeing actions that are just unbelievable. When countries, and they've already had 2 or 3 go broke, when they go along with whatever the central banking system or Fed has in mind, say, no, we're not paying a fraudulent debt to you. You have Iceland. And then they turn around and they say to the banks, you have perpetrated a fraud on the people through your idea of mortgaging. That's illegal. You can't do it that way. So they forgave all the mortgages. Now, what does a bank do at this point? I would be hiding in the basement or trying to catch a quick flight to somewhere else, which is one of the things that's been happening all over the planet. But there's no place to hide. Everybody is on the bandwagon to say no. Now, something people don't know, and I'm going to add this in here real quick we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 other countries interested in following the procedure that we used. Now, their documentation and the structure of things may be slightly different, but the process is valid, it's real, and it's available. And they are chomping at the bit trying to get our attention and say, oh, my goodness, please help us with this. We want to do that. So this is not apparently something that was just going to be here. Apparently, we started something that's going worldwide. It's called freedom.
Let me ask you this in relation to that. Our northern and southern borders right now, Canada and Mexico, given coalitions that have been forged mainly through military alliances in NATO, are we concerned about troops that can possibly be mustered against this current effort from outside the country, specifically on our northern and southern borders, military assets that may not be amenable to the plan as you've outlined it?
No. And there's several reasons for that. Even though there are cooperative agreements, as you mentioned, there are limitations on those cooperative agreements. At one point or another, you have a certain limitation. When that limitation is crossed, and there's several types of limitations, then it becomes an invasion. Now, the other part of this is that I'm going to suggest, and I don't know if the man's done writing it yet, but a friend of mine, David Wilcock, is supposed to offer a new piece entitled "Divine Intervention."
Yes.
Now, I can give you one example that I'm aware of that I checked and found to be valid. They had a couple of battalions of opposing troops online, rifles pointed. The command was given to fire, and the only thing that was heard was clickety click click. Not a bullet went off. Now, I'm sorry, anybody that ain't a gambler out there, you can look up odds, and I'll guarantee you they don't have odds that are that big. The number, you don't have a calculator that will handle that number. That is not possible. So you have, in my estimation, what would be called divine intervention. Now, that's supposed to be the name of this piece. There's a lot of documented evidence that David's going to present in that piece that